It's interesting, most churches have a very clear understanding what they believe about baptism, about communion, about all these other kind of key aspects of the faith journey. But when it comes to generosity, it's not always clearly defined about what we believe. And so before we can get to the giving moment and really unpack what it looks like to have a transformational conversation on Sunday morning, not a transactional one, which the church has become problematic for doing, in my opinion, I think we've got to work on the theology side first.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to Stewardship Leader, where we help church leaders disciple their people in stewardship and generosity. I'm your host, Leo Sabo, and today I am excited to welcome Frank Beeler, the new appointed CEO of Generis. Frank brings years of experience helping churches and nonprofits build culture of generosity that are deeply rooted in discipleship. He's led capital campaigns, developed sustainable giving strategies, and helped leadership teams align their values around generosity as a spiritual issue, not just as a financial one. In this conversation, we're going to talk about blind spots that even seasoned leaders miss, how generosity can become truly pastoral, and what it looks like to take your church to the next level, even if you're already doing a good job in that area. So whether you're just starting out generosity ministry or looking to reinvigorate a plateau, maybe, this episode will be packed with wisdom to help you lead with clarity and with courage. Frank, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and sharing some of your experience in this area of generosity.
Thanks, Leo. It's good to see you again, my friend. I haven't seen you in a few months, but man, I tell you, our first time together, seeing you in action, seeing the way you serve the leaders that are part of this network and beyond, your posture for serving the church is inspiring, and super grateful you let me be a part of the conversation today.
Well, thank you. I could say the same thing for you guys. You guys are an amazing team, from Jim and everyone else that's part of your team. Just amazing. And I know you guys really understand this topic so well. And you do such a great job of helping churches really to get it, not just to raise funds, which is absolutely necessary and important, but so much more than that. So before we get started, I do have some questions that I want to ask and dig in some of this topic, but I do want to get to know you a little bit more and really expose some of kind of your journey. What led you to Generis, your journey at Generis? You've been there for a while, obviously. And of course, your new role, and what does God do to get you to this place? We'd love to hear that.
Great. Let me start with the end of, I don't know the answer. I don't know why I get to do this, Leo. I'm just super thankful that God would let me be a part of this. And
That's cool.
it's a favor of God. It's a blessing. Super, super thankful. I grew up in a very, very poor and broken family and household without Jesus. I grew up in rural East Tennessee, a very broken environment. And so I came out of high school with a chip on my shoulder, ready to take over the world, got into insurance, and then gave my life to Jesus all at the same time. So came out of college, gave my life to Jesus, got a Christian punk rock band. That's a story for another time, Leo. We'll talk about that another time. But man, it fell hard for Jesus. Did not grow up in church, so didn't have any of the background, while at the same time learning insurance and sales and marketing, and ultimately became the president of a pretty sizable retail insurance firm operating in 42 states. I was still in my 20s at this point, and loving it. And we actually acquired a couple companies in Charlotte area, going from East Tennessee. So we moved to the big city of Charlotte. And when we moved there, we needed a church, and we got connected with a church called Elevation Church. And while at that time, that was many years ago, so Elevation wasn't what we know it is today, but ended up having the privilege to a real cool God story to leave everything behind, the golden handcuffs and the insurance, to go on full-time ministry at Elevation in the very early years, and got to be a part of the executive team there in the rocket ride years from 4 campuses to 17 campuses to what we now know as Elevation Worship before any of that started. I got to write a couple of kids' worship albums along the way. Just a really cool journey of full-time ministry. Loved it. Ultimately, felt led to move to the Atlanta area to work with a couple of parachurch organizations, helping people with strategic use of their facilities. And it was while down here in Atlanta that I connected with many great leaders, made some great friends in ministry, one of those being Jim Shepard. And Jim invited me along for this journey of actually consulting Generis. So I started to just share and give some perspective as this kind of younger leader that's given some maybe fresh perspective on what's happening in church and what I've seen and experienced. and just trying to add some value. And along the way, we struck up a friendship that dug deep fast. Trust was high. And we've been on a really cool journey over the last several years. And as I hired the CEO for the organization that I was leading, and I knew I was going to be transitioning to a board role, I was thinking about what was next. And Jim said, what does it look like to have a little bit more time of your time at Generis? And I said, man, I love the work. I've fallen in love with the discipleship work around generosity. And within a short amount of time, it went from what does it look like for more time at Generis for you to come take the lead at Generis? And we prayed a lot about that. And it's been a fantastic transition.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's an awesome story. And how cool that God used all of your experience in the church, the rocket ride you were on, and to bring that perspective to Generis. I think that's super valuable. And I think that's what I love about when I get to work with organizations like Generis, is that we in the church sometimes have a perspective, and it could be a good perspective based on the church size we have, but that is a limited perspective many times. And what I really appreciate about what you guys do is that you get to work with churches of multiple campuses, sometimes one campus, but larger churches. And you get to walk with them and help them understand this in a perspective that most of us stewardship leaders don't, because we're focused on one church at a time most of the time. And so that's what I love about your experience and what the value that you guys bring to our organization, to our churches, is that you help us to think through things that we may never actually face, but they're valuable to know, right? Because it changes the way we think about things. It changes about the way we communicate. So anyway, and I love Jim. I've known Jim for many years, and I don't know anyone that meets Jim that doesn't become a good friend with Jim. He's just that kind of person.
Absolutely.
So he's an amazing man. All right, well, let's dig into some of this content. You've talked about culture of generosity. This is something that's pretty consistent in our focus here. And you talk about that as being way before the giving moment. It's not something that you just do once on the Sunday. So what are some of the blind spots that seasoned stewardship leaders might still have when it comes to cultivating whole church generosity?
Wow, that's a massive question. Thank you for asking. There's a lot to that for sure. I'll tell you, I know this may sound random, and it's certainly not been in a lot of conversations we've had up until recently. We're trying to drive a conversation. We believe each church should have a theology of giving. That's a documented theology of giving, of what they believe, and that should be shared with their elders and with their pastoral team, whatever that looks like, volunteer, staff, doesn't matter. Their staff should understand that. So before we go asking the youth pastor to take that opportunity to do that stage announcement and announce about giving and how to give online, maybe we should talk about and process what we believe. Most churches' websites, when they click the give button, it either goes straight to a payment portal, becoming very transactional and not transformational, or it has one Bible verse. It's like Malachi 3, and that's the end of it, right? So the question is, what would it look like to start with and make sure we're all on the same page? What do we believe here at this church about generosity? What are we going to teach from the pulpit? What are we going to teach in our small groups and different environments? And how does that play out among the staff? Do the staff understand that? They may come from different churches, different backgrounds that have taught that differently. So they may have slightly different understandings. It's interesting. Most churches have a very clear understanding of what they believe about baptism, about communion, about all these other kind of key aspects of the faith journey. But when it comes to generosity, it's not always clearly defined about what we believe. And so before we can get to the giving moment, and really unpack what it looks like to have a transformational conversation on Sunday morning, not a transactional one, which the church has become problematic for doing, in my opinion. I think we've got to work on the theology side first. And so I think it's one of those unexpected things that before you do the fundamental and kind of practical things of following up with first-time givers and having plans and appreciating people and helping people learn what it looks like to go to a journey to tithing or whatever that may look like, it starts with the theology of giving.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So true. So true. And out of that flows, of course, the communication, whether it's clear or it's not clear.
That's
right. Such an important first step. Thank you for that. So in many churches, I think, especially churches that don't fully understand the connection between stewardship and generosity and our daily walk and really our spiritual condition, that it affects us every day. We manage money every day. We manage resources. It tugs on our hearts. It's an emotional thing. And sometimes pastors kind of diminish that and kind of think of this ministry as, oh, it's a financial thing. And it's, yes, if somebody needs, to get out of debt, we're going to have a class or a program or something. And so the financial part of it, at least in the church's structure, it's usually relegated or often seen as a finance team task, right? Mm-hmm. It's either going to be teaching people about finances or it's going to be specific about finances of the church, and that's going to be done by the administration office. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to actually embedding this in church discipleship rhythm, what does that look like practically? What does it look like for generosity to show up in a pastoral way rather than just, oh, it's just a financial thing?
Yeah. So once we know what we believe about generosity, what we're going to teach at our church about generosity, it's how do we unpack that with the lives of our people? So think Philippians 4:17. You didn't give from my account, but it's for your account that you gave. We actually believe in transformational work being done through generosity. Every time, not every time, nearly every time Jesus spoke about money, it was through the lens of what you're giving from, not what you're giving to. And yet, what we've got, because we've become so story driven, and because generosity is oftentimes just announcements on Sunday morning when we're unpacking this, it's become very transactional. Hey, because you give, we have baptisms. Because you give, we help the homeless people. Because you give, all those things are true and good. But I would think that more often than not, we're talking about the transformational work that happens in our lives when we become more generous. And Leo, I know you know this, but when Jesus did the teaching, you can't worship both God and mammon. The fascinating thing there is that it's the only time that I've found in the New Testament. Now, I'm no scholar, but it's the only time I've found in the New Testament that Jesus ascribed a deistic term to anything other than Jesus and or God. And it was a deistic term for money. So why would he put such a big word and big weight on that if he didn't know it was going to be a challenge for all of us? And then Leo, you said something there right at the beginning. You said everyone's navigating the tension of money. Everybody in the congregation, everybody's navigating it. And yet we preach a series every once in a while, time again. We're kind of soft selling it oftentimes. We don't really go there. We kind of pitter patter around it. We don't really want to be comfortable about it. In fact, I think the church is one of the only places where the conversation about money is weird. Like, we make it weird. It doesn't need to be weird. It's not weird when you go buy something at the store. It's not weird when you donate something around the holidays to some other organization. But we're the ones that are like, well, we don't want to make it too awkward to make it all about money. I understand that. But we're willing to preach a sermon series about marriage to our congregation when a large portion of the people in the room aren't married or are single or divorced or widowed or whatever. But then we won't unpack talking about money in a discipling way for transformative heart work when it's affecting everyone. So we will touch topics that we unpack systematically that only affect some of the congregation. Are weird to talk about the things that are discipleship oriented around money, that's about heart transformation. Generosity begets generosity, unlocking that. And part of that's because, Leo, we don't give them any kind of journey to grow in their giving. We either say when you give or start giving or when you tithe. And there's not really a plan of growth. So it has no discipleship journey. It's just a statement that we make.
Yeah, and it's probably the only place we also communicate unknowingly, maybe unintentionally, that there's an end to the journey. When you're tithing and maybe giving a little bit, that's it. That's the end of the journey.
Oh, good point.
And that's not true because, we use these terms within the CSN kind of content that we develop. And that's that if you had a bunch of tithers in your church, if everyone tithe, most pastors would be like ecstatic. But the reality is, like, if they were just obedient, but not extravagant, not fully bought in, not like, God, whatever you want, I just want to please you, then you really don't have people that are fully committed to Christ. They're just checking a box off. And yes, they're doing better than most, but it's not about comparison. It's not about how much we give. It's the attitude and the heart behind what we give. And out of that flows whether we do it well or not. whether we'd really understand that. So I just love that you guys push this into not just churches, but you realize that unless you're addressing this from the top down, from the senior pastor, the senior leadership team, that if they don't get it, then no one gets it. If it's foggy at the
Absolutely.
top, it's going to be completely irrelevant for everyone else or
Yeah.
confusing. And you're right. We do tend to make anything related to money kind of weird in the church. We ask for money. We think it's weird to ask for money. It's like, well, no one else has a problem if you buy something and they give you the price. No one's like, well, I mean, if it's not the right price, you can negotiate, but it's not weird. It's just normal.
Yeah.
But we do make it weird. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I know you guys obviously have worked with a lot of churches over the years, and you do capital campaigns, but also generosity strategies. Can you share a story of a church that's really done it well? They made the shift from, just doing it about about just fundraising to actually having this transformative cultural shift. Can you share something like that? And I know you guys use a term called Generosity 360. So maybe you can unpack that a little bit so our audience would know exactly what that means.
Sure. So we built a framework to help churches that aren't in the middle of a campaign or looking to do a campaign, but they want a systematic framework to improve their generosity. They want somebody to guide them through a playbook. It's a 9 to 12 month coaching program where we get very much in the weeds, very, very tactical. So start with theology of giving, but there's so much work to be done to every word on a first time giver card to significant gifts and how we phrase that. And we coach little people on things like don't write, if you get a large gift, please don't write a thank you card that says thank you for your generous gift. Because here's the thing, we don't know if it was generous or not. We know it was significant. It was significant to us, but it may not have been generous. So let's not even speak something that's not true. And so all the way down to the weeds of like these little things about lapsed giving and using Mortarstone or whatever tool that you used along the way to help figure that out. So that's what Generosity 360 is, which is basically our playbook for executing a culture generosity framework. And we help coach churches on that. One of the first churches, Leo, that we worked with, they're a church that everybody would know by name and by size and influence, and all intents and purposes was doing fine. But something kind of resonated with their leadership team that they knew that they needed to improve the conversation around money. Not because they didn't have or they were in a bind financially, they just knew they needed this for their congregation. It was time to unlock this conversation and have a very honest conversation. Pastor gets up. One of the first things he does, he leans on his podium and he says, guys, before we get started today, I just want to apologize. As a church, we haven't done a good job of discipling you when it comes to the conversation about God and money because we've made it weird. And I'm just going to say I'm sorry. And I'm not going to be weird about it anymore. I know that everybody in this room is navigating it and navigating the tension of what it can be. And your kids are figuring it out. And you're battling entitlement and selfishness and all this stuff. And we've got so much to work on. As a church, we're not going to be weird about it anymore. And we're going to help you along the way. What a powerful moment for that church to say from the top down, hey, we're all in and helping you navigate this thing because we know this thing can get sideways really quickly. To watch that church, Leo, go from one where a stage announcement, when they talked about money, it was, hey, everyone, thanks so much for coming to our church today. It's been a great Sunday. If this is your first time here, we're so grateful you're here. And oh, by the way, youth is doing this fun event in 2 weeks, so no one should forget about that. And by the way, it's the time in our service where we give. Here's a QR code. Scan the QR code, and you can give here. Your giving makes a difference. Something like that.
Yeah.
To a 3-minute small teaching every week that did 1 or 2, 3 things. What are you giving to? Why does it matter what you're giving to? Why can you trust what you're giving to? It's big for the younger generations. So now we have a cadence. 8 times a year, we teach on trust. An elder, a leader, someone in the church says, here's why I trust this organization. We work with ECFA or we do this or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So trust. What are we giving to? The stories of transformation. Churches are getting really good at that. But that's only 22 times. So 8 times a year, it's about trust. 22 times a year, it's about what you're giving to. And 22 times a year, I think that math works, somewhere in there, 22 times a year is around transformation. And let's be prepared to have an honest conversation and open up scripture like I did just 2 weeks ago for my church, 3 weeks ago for my church. And I said, hey guys, as we go into the generosity moment here for just a second, this is an example of one that they use. Um, I want to talk to you about Zacchaeus for just a second. And I need you to forget his size and I need you to forget the tree. Neither of those two things matter at this moment. So let's dive in here. He wanted to get a glimpse of Jesus. He encountered Jesus, has a conversation with Jesus that leads to him going to his house. And something happened when he went into his house because he came out and gave generously to the poor and then gave a guilty man's penance to his return, not a confessing man, because he realized what God had done in his life and for him through Jesus and was putting all the puzzle pieces together. And suddenly that guilt, that shame, that burden of how the idol of money had gotten in his heart. That's what we don't want to miss here. Don't miss don't read a children's story here. Read something about this man's heart was changed with an encounter with Jesus, which is very interesting that if you juxtapose that Luke story to one chapter earlier, the rich young ruler. So wait a second. We just read how hard it is for a rich man to get to heaven. And then Jesus, in all his wisdom and power, just less than a chapter later in Luke, says, here's the richest man that I'm aware of in the New Testament. Okay, chief tax collector, richest man that I'm aware of. Maybe there's a couple ladies. We get dealer of purple. Maybe there's a conversation there. But at least one of the wealthiest men in all the New Testament. And look at what he did. Guys, I know that we're not in that category. We're probably not all sitting here, the richest person in our city or in our community. But gosh, God's got something and he wants something to unlock in our hearts. So I would like for this to be a conversation of us praying and asking God, what do you want to do in my heart today when it comes to generosity? Not just what we're giving to. We're going to do great stuff. God's going to do some great stuff to the church. He already is. What's God want to do in your heart and life? And what we saw was this large church make that shift and disciple their campus pastors in those conversations. And Leo, it was powerful. Now, the unlocked generosity over the course of 2.5 years, their giving over the course of 2.5 years went up 47%. Their regular giving, no campaign. Okay. Now I'm not promising anything. What I'm saying is when God gets the hold of the hearts of the people that he's already brought into the congregation, suddenly money becomes less of a limiter into what God wants to do to execute the vision. Yeah. But we have to unlock the hearts of our people, not just our pocketbooks.
If you're looking to maximize every dollar for kingdom impact, check out My Well Ministry. With cutting-edge giving technology and over 25 years of experience, they've saved ministries more than $65 million in processing fees, keeping more money where it matters most. Their dedicated team ensures a seamless transition and empowers your church to steward resources more effectively. Learn more at mywell.org.
Yeah. Boy, what a powerful story. And so, what I want to take away from that I want people to hear as they're listening or watching this is that there's a systematic approach to it. It's intentional. It's not scripted. It's not, manipulative. That's not the heart behind it. But there is something to making a plan and walking it out. Not just, I'm going to get up there and wing it. I think it's important to take the time to really understand what is the language around us. How do we say it in a way that's not manipulative? It's not coercing. It's not guilt-ridden. It's unlocking, like you said it so beautifully. You unlock something in people because that's what God is doing, right? Yeah. We're just facilitating that and being faithful as spiritual leaders to say, this is part of your walk with Christ, and he wants more of your heart. And this world is constantly trying to grab it, right? Mammon is constantly trying to grab it. In our opportunity every weekend, every time we get in front of our people is to say, here's a reminder of what Jesus done. Here's what he can do for you. Here's how he can unlock things in your life. And, for some people, God really wants to bless them. He really wants to increase them. but mammon can keep them from accepting that or for
right.
believing it or doing it for the wrong reason.
Mhm.
And so in church, what I've noticed is over my lifetime is you either have a poverty mentality that keeps people from being everything and multiplying what God wants them to multiply, or they become so money driven that it drives them from their faith.
Yeah.
Or they become controlling. It's like, I'll give, but I want this and this and this. And we don't want to raise those kind of people because the scripture is very clear. And that's what I love about the two stories you mentioned. They're so powerful. And I'd say to pastors, because sometimes pastors feel like it's such a tough topic to talk about. And I say, you have such great material.
Right.
You have such great material.
Yeah.
The most compelling material is around finances and the heart. And nothing touches it more in our culture than that. So I was excited you shared those two because it literally is, I think, intentional that Luke talks about it in one chapter and shows how hard it is, how this person chooses to say, I can't part with this. It means too much to me. It's got my heart. I can't let it go. And then you have this other guy who everybody would expect would use this. Like if you put them in front of people and said, which one do you think you would choose which decision? People probably would have said, the tax collector is going to be like, no, thanks.
Right.
And the other guy probably will say yes. And that's what's interesting is how the power of God can transform a life. And when we're intentional about talking about it, and I love the strategy you guys have that you're walking and coaching these pastors to understand and really to wrestle through. You're not telling them what to say. You're just saying, let's talk about why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Is it line up with the theology of what Jesus taught on this? And then don't be shy. Be bold. You're bold about other things you talk about. Be bold about this because it will change people's lives. It will transform them.
Leo, so Luke 18, where we see the rich young ruler, sometimes I get frustrated with the titles that we give passages. So sometimes I ask myself, and it's maybe a weird behavior. Hopefully it's not heretical. I don't think it is to say, how would I title this? If I were to title it something else, what would I title it? Just to get something else out of it instead of looking for the same thing. And the last time I read The Rich Young Ruler, do you know what my new title for that section is? The Almost Disciple. Because Jesus at the end said, come follow me. Just like he did the other disciples.
That's right.
Come follow me. And his response was, and he walked away sad.
Yeah.
He
Instead
had
of they dropped their nets.
Same invitation as Peter and everyone else that like their life changed forever. He had the exact same phrasing, the same invitation, but he just couldn't do it. What are we missing out of? This is what we teach our people, right? This is what comes from the pulpit. This is what comes from those little giving moments. What are we missing out on because we won't let go? And suddenly that gives a different story of, well, if I was rich, this would apply to me, but it doesn't apply to me. People find reasons to discount themselves, but when it's a heart issue, suddenly it applies to everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think
Leo, you said, go ahead. You're about to say something.
No, please go ahead.
I was just getting excited about what you were saying about the kind of systematic discipleship work. Mm-hmm. And I got thinking, one of the things that we worked through in the Generosity 360 is on how to handle lapsed givers. So people that were giving on some frequency, and how do we reach out to them? In my mind, Leo, it is purely a pastoral matter. If someone was doing recurring giving and they stopped, not because their credit card date expired, but they went in and selected to stop, I will tell you that is a pastoral issue. It's only one of a handful of things. I'm moving. My world has been flipped upside down financially due to medical crisis, job, something like this, or I'm mad at somebody in the ministry. You know what should happen, in my opinion, Leo? Every Monday, there should be a report that the pastoral leadership team gets, no matter your church size. And it should be anybody that stopped serving, anybody that publicly said, hey, I'm no longer going to participate in this small group or Sunday school or whatever, and anybody that turned off recurring giving. And we should call them. And you don't say, hey, I saw that you stopped giving. You know what you do? You call and say, hey, we're just trying to do a better job at pastoring our people. And so every week I get a list of people to check in on, and you're on my list this week. I just wanted to call and see, how are you doing? And I will tell you, more often than not, they're going to share with you, my world's upside down. I'm mad at something you said, or, oh my gosh, my job just transferred me. We're moving.
Yeah.
It's always a pastoral issue. There's nothing there's no reason to turn off that's non-pastoral, in my opinion. And so what we miss out on if we're not systematic is the opportunity to leverage the tools that we have to disciple our people.
Yeah.
And I hope we're doing that when people like stop volunteering or something else happens. We check in on them. We make sure they're okay. Not because we need them to volunteer, but we want to make sure they're okay. What's going on? What's happening in your world? Labs giving is just an opportunity to love on people.
Yeah.
Once again, you don't have to bring up money at all, but it is an indicator that something's going on in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is something we recently talked about in one of our collabs at CSN, that it's really a care call.
Yeah.
Never mention money because it's really not about that. But really, especially with larger churches, we try to do such a much better job to keep people engaged and connected. But what tells us they're not connected? Because you don't take attendance, right? You don't know if they're there that weekend or not. So there's very few things that you can know whether they're engaged or not, or that they're disengaging. Giving is one of them. They're not dropping off their kids at kids' church, so that means they weren't there. Or like you said, something else is happening, right? They're dropping out of a ministry, out of a small group. So yeah, those are care calls and so important. So this is one of those things that if you're intentional, you use the data and you realize, okay, something's happening. And how many people who go to church, the average churchgoer, raises their hand at the moment they lose their job and say, I got to call my pastor. Most of them don't even think that way. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's not an open door most of the time. They don't know that they can call their pastor. Even if they think, well, I don't think my pastor would reject me if I called. But that's not where they go to. So it should be for the pastoral team to say, hey, let's keep an eye on our people as best we can. Even in a large church, there's ways to do it. And this is one of those wonderful ways that you can really check on people. And most of the time, the testimonies we've gotten is that they are so like blown away. Like, how did you know to call me?
Yeah.
Like I needed this, right? Very powerful. So a couple more questions for you before I let you go. One of them is the technology and the systems that we use in the church, especially around the financial part, can be, like you said, people will go on to give and they're met on a platform where it's just a transaction. So it can feel somewhat transactional instead of something spiritual, something that's moving them to do something that God is obviously stirring them to do. So how do you reinforce a culture of generosity with systems and technology without making it feel like it's a transaction? Because we don't want people to feel like it's just, oh, you're giving money, but it's going in its void. How do we make sure that we keep it spiritual?
Yeah. One thing is we can control the confirmation email and the screen pop-up. And so instead of it saying, congratulations, your transaction has been processed, that's like default trend. That's a default word. Thank you so much for your generosity. By you giving, we're allowed to do this. And we know that it's something that God has modeled for us through his own son, Jesus. So thank you for being a little more like Jesus today. That message pops up. Then in my mind, everybody goes on a generosity journey. And it's something like this. Give something, give consistently, grow in your generosity, give generously. So that goes beyond the tithe, like you were talking about earlier. Everybody's on a journey. So when you're on your website, when you're talking from the stage, are you speaking in a way that the people that aren't giving will now give? Inviting them to be a part of this? Are you inviting the people that have been giving to give more consistently or to give consistently? Are you inviting people at any point to grow in generosity? I think on your website, you should have giving and update your giving, 2 buttons side by side that go to the same place, Leo, same account. But it's this mindset of, oh, I got a raise. I haven't modified. I haven't increased at all. We don't even put this stuff out there. And so it's like we expect it, but then we get up on Sunday morning, once again, announcement time. This is a chance for the youth pastor to get a rep, okay? And so they get up and they do their announcements, and they're like, oh, by the way, we just want to thank you for your generosity. And then they say, scan the QR code to go to the website. Wait a second, I'm already giving. I don't need instructions on how to give. And the people that aren't giving, you didn't invite them in. And so who are you talking to?
Exactly.
And so in my mind, every giving talk, your website, your communication is give something, give consistently, grow in your generosity, give generously. And so by doing so, now your automation, your email follow-up, I personally think that your pop-up confirmation should either that or the next email you get should invite you to make it a consistent recurring gift. Like cueing them to go, hey, this was great. Do you want to do this $20 a week every week? Do you want to invite to do that? You're inviting them in on a journey. Oftentimes our website either teaches what a tithe means, but doesn't give any room for anybody to work their way toward that or to start a journey, so they can't get their mind around it. So we did a small Bible teaching on that somewhere on the FAQs, or it's just a Bible verse and straight to a website. And so there are little things that we can do in the automation of going, okay, once somebody sets up to where they're doing recurring giving, we no longer talk to them about recurring giving. Now we are put them in a category where by email or communication or text message, we're inviting them to grow in their generosity. What does that look like? How do you do that communication? That's part of the stuff we do in that Generosity 360 is work through the language of the different emails and copy to lead people on that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not difficult. It's just I think people who haven't done it or churches that haven't had some kind of coaching, some kind of process to engage with, to really understand that language matters. I mean, we all understand that.
Mhm.
But again, sometimes we think we're doing a good job because we're providing all the steps, but we miss the most important one, which is to invite people into an opportunity to trust God more rather than just, hey, here's the QR code, here's where your money's going. Nothing's wrong with any of those things. You want to make it simple, you want to make it impactful, all of those things, but you are speaking to different people.
Mhm.
There's different people in your congregations that are
Yes.
different steps in the journey. And if they don't even know there's a journey, then you're really not really hitting any of those, you're shooting blanks basically, because it's not really touching on anyone's heart to take that next step.
Right.
So
That's right. That's my number one question when it comes to the giving moment is if you want to assess what somebody did, or I'd say two, was this transformational or transactional?
Mm.
And who were you talking to?
Right. Good question.
And the first one, they may be able to tie it. They'll at least have an answer. The second one, more often than not, you will get a blank stare. Like it doesn't, because they weren't thinking about that when they were going in. Unlike the sermon where we've thought about, hey, we're going in, it's Mother's Day. And some of you have lost your mom and it's been a hard time. Some of you want to be a mom and you've not been there yet. Like you were thinking through everybody in the room and all the different emotions and thoughts. And you're being very mindful.
Yes.
But when it comes to generosity, we literally act like we're talking in an empty room, like we're practicing.
Yeah. And thankfully to you guys and some of the work we're doing, we could do better. We know that.
Yes.
So last question. So if a church leader is listening today, and let's say they feel like they're hitting a plateau in generosity, they're doing everything they can, but they just seem to be stuck at a certain level, even in a healthy church. Maybe their giving is good, but they're just kind of plateaued. And if the church is growing, right, especially if your numbers are going up, but your giving staying consistent, that is a measure that should be worrisome because like, oh, there's new people coming in, but they're not engaged, right? They're not engaged and growing in this area. So what's the one courageous step that you challenge them to take to unlock this next level?
That's a great question. I think the honest evaluation of how you talk about money on Sunday morning and being willing to sit down and ask the questions, who are we talking to? What are we saying? How consistent is that with the teachings of Jesus and Paul on generosity? The reason I think it's courageous is it's not a fun exercise. More often than not, it is, we have so much room to grow in this area, and just being honest about that. So I think that's where it starts. We do have a tool. I like to challenge people. Most churches in their budgeting process, they budget by last year's budget and then they estimate accordingly. That's their budget. It has nothing to do with the capacity of generosity in their church. It just is, what did people give last year? And we're going to build off that, whatever that arbitrary number is. Some people go, I want to do 90% of that. I want to do 110% of that, whatever it may be. But there's some minimal range in there, but they don't look at themselves and go, but what would it look like to unlock generosity in a different way? And we created a tool called the Generosity Potential Assessment, the GPA.
Okay.
And it's this very simple, very basic tool that anybody can use where using Census Bureau data, it just pulls, you put in your regular weekly attendance, and then it'll kind of figure out how many households that really means per month. You plug in your current annual giving, and it'll juxtapose that to Census Bureau data to let you know of your total congregation, what percentage of their income are they giving? And now we're rounding down on those numbers, and it's still pretty discouraging. And so what I like to say, Leo, and we can put a link to this, it's a free tool, like they can use it, but they can use this GPA. And I just like to ask the question, and the tool will do this for you. What if everybody in your congregation increased their generosity by 1%? Suddenly your budget looks, they upgrade their 1%. Your budget doesn't even look the same.
No.
And so, I mean, radical change in generosity. And so I just like to have the honest conversation of what are we doing to serve our people, to actually teach about giving and tithing and what it looks like to unlock generosity and get rid of that idol of money. If we actually believe these are things that God's called us to do, the fruit of that is unlocking generosity for ministry in a whole new way. And so the tool isn't that sophisticated. It's really simple. I'm sure there's all these reasons we could say, well, it's this because of this, and this isn't right, whatever. It gives you a place to start to have an honest conversation with how are we doing and what would it look like, not for us to get everybody in the congregation tithing, which once again, that's even its own limit that isn't necessarily biblical, but it's at least a conversation. Forget that for a second. What if we just had everybody unlock generosity a little bit more? What would happen with funding our God-inspired vision? It would be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sold, obviously. But my hope is that pastors, leaders that are listening to this can understand that our heart is not to focus on generosity for the financial side of it, but to realize the transformational impact this will make in people's lives and in their marriages and everything else. When you get your finances right, when you do them God's way, generosity is the outflow of that. And so it's almost like it's like a field that's been planted. It's ripe for the taking, and you just have to make sure that you go out there and start picking up the fruit, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes churches don't do a good job of teaching people how to be good stewards, or they do that, but they're shy about asking people to give. It's like you said at the beginning, why make it weird? Let's talk about it. I used to work in a corporate setting, a large company, and we would sit at lunch as a group, 10, 12 guys, and the money conversation would just flow. Somebody was buying a car, somebody was buying a boat or something, and it was talking about the financing. Nobody said, hey, we don't talk about money here, it's weird.
Right.
No, it was just normal conversation. It was not weird. So it's an important topic that we need to talk about. I know you guys also created a resource recently for pastors on how to preach on money and how to be better communicator around that. So mention that before we end, because I want people to also be aware of that. And then we'll drop a link for that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, we wrote an ebook primarily around Jim's teachings, a phenomenal ebook that where he talks about the giving moments and focuses on how to unpack. So you can unpack it with your whole staff around transformational versus transactional. It's a free ebook. So we can link that in the show notes for sure as well and get that out in the email. So you've got this calculator that hopefully will inspire some conversation just to get you thinking differently. This ebook that I think will be really helpful. Man, if that serves you guys well, that's fantastic. And if someone wants to go further or explore Generis, they're welcome to just go to the website and say, hey, I want to talk to somebody. They can feel free to do so. But I'd say starting point is just use those free tools that are right there available.
Yeah. Well, you guys are extremely generous with your resources. I love that because that's what you're teaching and that's what you're practicing. So thank you, Frank. I appreciate your time today and just sharing from your vast knowledge of this and working with churches, and just have a perspective that's so valuable to all of us in the church. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Leo, you're so kind. Would you mind if we wrapped up by me just praying for you and everybody
I love that.
listening?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Lord, we're grateful that you would allow us to do what we get to do. We don't want to take it for granted. So let us lean in, God. Speak to our hearts. Continue to give us insight and wisdom and steward well everything you've entrusted our care. Once again, Lord, we don't take it for granted. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name.
Hmm.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Frank. And I
Thanks,
want to
Liam.
thank all of you for watching or listening to this. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And I hope it was beneficial. I hope in some way you got some new ideas, a shift in perspective, maybe even a challenge. And so don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with your team. Maybe make this a point of a conversation starter on your staff so that you can begin to really lean into this. I hope it was beneficial. Please share it. And then thank you for just taking the time to listen and look at the resources that we offer, that Generis is offering. Again, if you want to work with Frank or explore what Generis is doing, they really do help a church get it in so many ways. So I couldn't recommend them more highly for what they do. I know that team. I know many people that are on their team, Frank, Jim, and so many others. So you're getting quality people that will serve you very well. And if this conversation today sparked something in you, again, let us know that whether we at CSN can help you. We'd love to come alongside you and help you in any way in this journey of discipling your people in generosity and stewardship. You can reach us at christianstewardshipnetwork.com, Generis at generis.com. And again, check the show notes and we'll provide all those links so that you can get to them quicker. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Stewardship Leader.